Joining me now once again, Bob Horowitz, executive producer of Super Bowl Greatest Commercials, Funniest of All Time. Airs Wednesday, February 5th at 9 Eastern and Pacific on CBS and streams on Paramount Plus. He joins us now from Miami. Great to see you once again, Bob. And you just get busier and busier, which brings us to this year's broadcast. How do you change it? What do you do this year that makes it new, that makes it fresh?
Well, what we did was we first, Ross, looked at, what were there any anniversaries? Because if you've been doing the show for so long, this is our 24th year doing it, we sometimes honor those commercials that are celebrating anniversaries. So we looked and we saw that the What's Up campaign by Budweiser happened 25 years ago. So 25th anniversary, Budweiser, What's Up? It's funny. We also thought that kind of in this world, we could use a little laugh, a little smile. So we said, what about if we created a vote for the FOTE? Vote for the FOTE is, so we let America vote of the FOTE, which is funniest of all time. So the theme this year is funniest of all time. And the way in which we've put that together is we went and took the whole bucket of commercials, gave them to Nate Burl, sent it to Danny Rua. And okay, guys, give us your top 10. Give us your top 10 funniest of all time commercials. And we're going to do a countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. And when we get to the final two, we're going to take, Danny, your favorite and Nate's favorite and let America vote. So that's what the show is about. It's a celebration of the funniest commercials of all time and letting America decide which commercial that it is, and along the way also saluting a lot of those brands that have brought us the funny over the years.
And it's interesting when you mentioned the Budweiser, I can just, many people can they just hear it? What's up? And
What's up?
What's up? And that went on all year. That just went on at every water cooler in every office, at just places. And that will, so when Danny and Nate give their vote, America then votes. How does that work at the end of the show? What happens?
They do it at the end of the show. So the last 15 minutes of the show is a vote by America of the final two commercials from Dan, that Danny has one, Nate has the other, and America decides which one they believe is the funniest of all time. And that is revealed at the very, very end of the show.
Do we get to vote here on the West Coast? Or is that going to be a different deal?
If you watch it while it's happening on the East Coast, that's a great question. No, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen that way. But it's it's a representation, allows America to participate, in the discussion, and what's happened is too that we've lucked out is that some of the commercials in the show, if you went, one in the countdown is the Doritos Crash the Super Bowl commercial, when they, in 2007, created that funny campaign of allowing everyday Joes and Janes to put their hand into the creative process of producing a spot. And so not only are we showing some Doritos past Crash the Super Bowl commercials, but coincidentally, really just coincidentally, we found out in the last month or two that Doritos is back in the Super Bowl this Sunday with a whole new Crash the Super Bowl campaign. So we look like we're the smart one, but I have to reveal here it was just really luck.
By the way, I don't think I asked you this last time. Do you have a favorite over the years, over the many years you've done this?
What I like is I like saluting the simple commercials, those that resonate without a lot going on, but are just so clever where they just nailed it. So, so when all of a sudden you had this user generated campaign, I mean, I really love those, so you've seen a user generated commercial that Chevy did years ago. I love that one, a funny one, that where a graduate just goes crazy when his parents give him a brand new car. And he's going, I can't believe he's going crazy. And his friends come over, and he just goes crazy. That's the guy that created the commercial. Like he stars in his own commercial. Only thing is the bitty boom at the end is the guy comes from across the street and gets in the car. It's really the neighbor's car. He just thought that was his graduation present, right? So, it's clever. And so I love everything Doritos has done. And I also love the simple one, say from FedEx, where FedEx years ago did a commercial where they had that annoying bars and tone that you see when a station or network signs off the air, the color bars and the tone. And they had a crawl across the bottom of the screen that said, our advertising agency, and you kind of see here when it was, because it was from before, because our agency spent only $1.5 million. We're up to $8 million.
$8 million now on the 30-second.
Or 30, yes. So here it just said our ad agency got us to spend a $1.5 million ad for the Super Bowl. Only problem is they didn't get it to the network on time. They're out a client, and we're out $1.5 million FedEx, when you absolutely positively have to get something someplace somewhere. So just think about it. That was spot on messaging, but how much did that cost to produce? Not a lot, but it resonated because, you said at the very beginning, you want people discussing whatever you're doing. You want to be part of the discussion on Monday morning at the water cooler. Now, what I think you're seeing is that Super Bowl commercials, everyone will ask, geez, I think it ruins it all because, companies now are releasing them either a full commercial or trailers ahead of time. It is what it is. And I liken that to a movie that if you're spending these tens of millions of dollars all in for these campaigns and to produce, I mean, you don't release a movie just by saying, come to the movie theater and find out what it's about. You have trailers and teasers, and that's what's happened. So I appreciate that, and gets people excited for Sunday.
Bring us back in time. How did this all begin? How did you put this together in its very first, its inception?
Sometimes ideas are simple, are kind of simple, and they just happen. And I joke and I say through a focus group, and people will drill down more and say, what do you mean a focus group? You had an idea and then you gave it to a focus group? I said, no. I said, you all, same focus group. Don't you go to Super Bowl parties? So 25 years ago, I was at a Super Bowl party in New York and was in an apartment, and friends were getting together that had not seen each other because, men, women, it's Super Bowl Sunday is a holiday. And so everyone's going to get a catching up, big buffet table and food, and people are eating and drinking and during the game. But the minute the commercials came on, what happened? Everybody, whoosh, and they all scampered back in the living room to watch the commercials. So really at that moment, I said, maybe commercials deserve a show. Music, movies, they all deserve, so here, these people are all into Super Bowl commercials. Maybe there's a show here. And thank God to CBS, they saw that vision and said, sure, let's do it. And we did it, and it was the #1 show that night 24 years ago. And every year, it continues to do great. Whether CBS has the Super Bowl like this year or next year, it just does well every year. And that was the genesis of it. And if someone says, what and how do you keep it going? We let the commercials do the work, because the worst thing a producer can do is think they have to get in, they have to come up with something new and figure out some new, and no, just in much the same way. And I say this now often, that in much the same way, you maybe scratch your head a little bit and say, why are they running Charlie Brown's Christmas again? Why are they running Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer special, animated special? Because people like to watch them once a year, and they don't see it the rest of the year. And it takes them back to a place where they think they felt good, and, they're reminiscing. Anyways, and that's what Super Bowl commercials do. And that's what our show does.
It becomes the comfort food of television sports commercials, doesn't it?
Right. Exactly. And, when we have the show, when we have the show and in a certain year, and we decide that we're going to mix the commercials, meaning the heartfelt tug on the heartstrings, along with those commercials that get you to laugh out loud, like the funniest, like this year. Um, some of those commercials, like the Mean Joe Green and the Coca-Cola Kid, I mean, like that gets you to shed a tear. And I mean, we did a reunion one year where we had Mean Joe reconnect 40 years later with the kid, or not 40 years old, but when the kid was 40, and Mean Joe lost it, and you're watching that and you're choked, you get choked up. So that it's a really, really neat thing. And again, we just try not to get in the way of the commercials and let them do all the heavy lifting.
Thinking about this, you mentioned, and it's unbelievable, exorbitant. Is the least of $8 million for a 30-second this year. And that's what they pay. That's what these advertisers pay to be part of the Super Bowl. But now you're running these ads, which are vintage now in many cases. Do you have to pay them, or do they pay you guys again? How does that work?
Oh, no, 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 no. What the people will say, "Wow, you must make a lot of money." When first show first started, we said, "Well, you must make a lot of money on this because, I'm sure they just give them to you, to run them for free." So the model is, and it's pretty simple. It's actually one of our more expensive shows because uh, the companies are either going to give you, permission to run the spot or not.
Mhm.
And it may be something where for some reason or another they've changed their campaign drastically. They don't think it's correct, now versus what was before for whatever reason. So the company has to say yes, and more often than not, they say yes. But then you have to pay the actors and the actresses and for the music. So you have to clear the commercials in the same way you clear a clip. So that's pretty expensive. It can be expensive, and it depends how many actors there are in a commercial. So, we I think if anything, the way in which to look at it is those actors that think maybe before, not that it's a lot of money, a lot of money, but those actors think 30 years ago when they did that commercial, they got paid, but that's a one-off. I'm not gonna get paid because they're never gonna run that campaign again. When we show it in our show, they get paid as though it was running, to sell the potato chip, the beer, or, whatever.
I've done many a talk show, and there's always those words when we have stars on: clip clearance. Bring it to the clip clearance, people, and that's all.
Yes.
Back in your world, you grew up where?
In Los Angeles, in Los Angeles.
But your company is based here, back east, North New England. Give me some of the genesis of your company.
Well, we're a Pennsylvania LLC, so we're based in Pennsylvania, suburbs of Philadelphia.
Right, Jim?
That's Juma, right, Juma, and that's where, that's there where, we handle all of our post-production there. And our offices, I would call it our main offices, are in Los Angeles, and that's where the creative team is, and, that's where I, spend a lot of time. I go back and forth, but that's where I spend a lot of time. And, and I had what's really great about this show, that in it being an annual and kind of a get together, is that many of the same people that worked the very, very first year on this show still work on this show now. So Tony Lanny, who is the other executive producer and dear friend, is the other executive producer besides, myself on the show. Robert Dalrymple, who is a producer, he was on in the very, very first, very, very first year. And so it's great every year to do it again. So we do the show in conjunction with Film 45, and we've done that ever since I left IMG, which was Film 45 kind of came from IMG.
Mhm.
And it's just great doing the show with with the same people. And it's actually amazing, as Danny Rua pointed out to me this year, our co-host, she said, "Bob, you realize this is year 9 for me."
Wow.
I go, "Wow." Right. So, and we had
Realize that. That
9 years. Yeah. So we've had, and what's kind of cool is next year is our 25th anniversary. So again, I said it here in speaking, Ross, with you, that we have to be careful Because what I'm about to say is we have to figure out what we're going to. So many, they're like we've had all the hosts over the 25 years. Staples and Boomer has been a great host of the show, and he handed the torch to Nate Burleson, who they were on the NFL Today together, and they're good friends. And like we have to be careful that we don't get too caught up in ourselves next year celebrating our 25 years because America's going to tune in to watch the commercials. They're not tuning in to see, Bob or Tony or Robert or anybody, Danny reflecting on their 25 years or, 9 years or 10 years. So
It's still also all about those commercials. But by the way, with
it's all
Pennsylvania,
about the commercials.
why Pennsylvania? I was going to say LA, New York. I got that. Why? How does Pennsylvania work into this?
I would say just by on a personal front, when I was working at IMG, I was in New York, so I had left California to go to IMG to run the TV division there. And when I left IMG to start Juma, I had a weekend house in Pennsylvania in Bucks County, and my friend were there. I guess if being from California and being probably a beach person, we'd be a Hampton-based company.
Right.
But no, my buddies there had already done the Hampton thing, so they were out in Bucks County, and it was a nice place. So, when it started Juma, I already had the place there, so that's where it started.
Which brings me to the fact that with that tie-in, do you have a personal interest in the Eagles this year?
Yes. Well, I feel like the guy that goes to the casino and puts the chips on multiple. I won. Yeah, I know.
Right.
You put a lot of chips out, right? So, I am both a Rams season ticket holder because I told you I grew up in California, and I am an Eagles season ticket holder. So I have two chips on the board, and this year the chips played each other, right? So I went to the game, and it was actually kind of funny because I went to the game in Philadelphia, and I try to go to like maybe 3 Eagles games a year, and I am an Eagles fan. I really am an Eagles fan, but my roots are being a Rams fan. I mean, so those are my 2 favorite teams. But the people in my section at the Eagles games had no clue about the LA roots. So when I showed up with my buddy at the game, and I'm wearing my Rams garb because I was not afraid to do that, there was a lot of shocked faces, so anyway, so it's you get the Eagles won, so I'm happy. Yeah.
You get people who scream. Go to the Dodgers game and wear the San Francisco hat. See what happens there. It's just
Yes, that's our yes, yeah, there this isn't like I showed up in that section wearing a New York Giants or Dallas Cowboys. That would have been different, yes.
outside of this. I mean, it's a spectacular broadcast, and we'll talk for a second about the next year's big one. Um, you guys are producing specials all the time. What do you what do you like to specialize in? What do you enjoy producing? You've got Cedric the Entertainer and some of them. Run me down on what you're doing the other parts of the year.
Well, we have 2 I would say feel good series on CBS. We have Secret Celebrity Renovation, which is the we've done 3 seasons, and we're hoping to do a 4th season and 5th. And that show is, where a celebrity just thinks back, and there is that special person in their life that without that special person, they realize they wouldn't be where they are today. So they want to give back. So they go back, I mean, authentic. They go back to their hometown to reward that special someone with a home renovation. And we have done 30 episodes there, and it's been very successful because it's authentic. I mean, it's really their hometown, and again, it tugs on the heartstrings, and it's feel good TV. And for the viewer, it's taking the viewer into a place they don't ordinarily see, right? It's, right, and shows a side of a celebrity that you don't know. It's not, and it's not something you would read about in the checkout line at the grocery store in the tabloids. Like it's the authentic. I wouldn't say just good side. It's the authentic side of who that celebrity really is. And it is so good that when you've done so many of them, as we've done, the celebrities are really the recruiters for future shows,
Uh-huh.
right? So, we did Paula Abdul in season 1, and she was so blown away by the show. I call her, said, "Paula, who else? Who else? Season 2." Oh, I'll tell you, I told this to Nicole Scherzinger, right? Nicole Scherzinger. She, right? And so Paula recruited Boomer, recruited Aaron Donald, so that's what's really good about that. The Cedric the Entertainer show, again, feel good that was a call from CBS, from Jody Roth, who was the executive there at CBS, her idea, where she said, "Are you seeing all these videos that are being posted on Instagram and Facebook that are about people experiencing COVID and lockdown and being at home, working at home? What about if we do a show? Maybe what do you think about a clip show where we showcase all of these?" And I said, "What would you say when a network executive comes?" "No, I don't think it's sure, good idea, right?" I'd be like, "Good idea, let's develop that." So we quickly turned it around, you know, came up with, all right, here's what it would be. We aggregate all these videos. Here's what we think. It's not commercials, it's videos, right? It's videos that are user generated by people with real authentic experiences, not stage, real experiences. So then all of a sudden it's who's a good host. And they said, what about Cedric? And we had just done a show with Cedric. I said, that's great. We said, what about a set? Well, CBS Radford and the Stewart, they're closed because of COVID. It's a home video show. What about if we ask Cedric to do the show in his real living room as opposed to build a living room that looks like his real living room? So he said, sure. And the show was really successful. And we said, why not continue it? And 5 years later, we are doing still greatest at home videos. And we do stunted special, it airs at times a year, very clever by CBS to place it in and around major tentpole events.
Uh-huh.
And we still shoot it at Cedric. And we still shoot it at Cedric's house.
At his house. How did you get into this business? You grew up out here in Los Angeles. Of course, the business was all around you. But how did you get in? How did you enter what you're doing now? How did it start?
Well, it's interesting you say the business was all around you. What I loved when I was teenager, is I lived on the West Side, and I would go over the hill with my buddy, and I loved to go to tapings, right? So you go to Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, I mean, it was, you would just go to the Price is Right. You went to, so I loved the excitement of that, and a show and a show and a show. Yeah, so when I was in college and then after, I wanted that, that excitement, right? I wanted that excitement. And I was interested in politics at that time, but I was interested in campaigns. I liked the campaigns. I liked trying to market a candidate, and to do be a part of that. And I loved election night. But I realized it's only every 2 years or 4 years. But if you're in television, it could be every week you have that excitement. So I leaned in towards the media TV side, and it's not something that I'm proud of or not proud of, or it's the right path or not the right path. Often people in our business get to where they are because of the traditional start in the mailroom, be really good at what you do, and move up, move up, move up. I didn't choose that path. My path always in my career was, if I want to do it, I kind of have to build it, so, and it's the same that many years later. It really is that
You had to start somewhere, but you had to start somewhere. What was your first gig in this?
first, the first gig was, the genesis where I was working was for the World Team tennis team in Northern California, the Golden Gators, and um, and we played our season. Billie Jean King was the owner of the team, along with the guy Dave Peterson, and I was, in my senior year, still at Cal at Berkeley. Only they didn't know that, So I, I would, as they would say later, Bob would run off. He had to go do something, and then he would come back. Was to go to school. And so anyway, we had an off season. In the off season, Billie Jean King we bought a tennis tournament in Atlanta, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
And so I ran the tennis tournament with a buddy of mine, Chuck Bennett, and I wanted to put it on TV. And so I went to this thing called a Super Station. That was WTCG at the time. That was because our tournament was at Georgia Tech. And WTCG, the Super Station, was, right across the road and on Peachtree. And so I went and had a meeting with this guy who owned the Atlanta Braves. All of maybe 20, Ted Turner, all of 24. And I did a time buy with him. And I bought the time on WTCG, and he gave me, and I still have it to this day, he gave me the prospectus, right, of WTCG, and it had one of those graphs, like we're at 1,000,007, and then in whatever it is, 1990, it's going to be here, and I think it went all the way up to 10 million. He didn't realize the 150 million. He didn't realize the sub base, right? He didn't realize where it could go. So that was really the start. But again, it was a time buy. So I was on the air with our tournament. It was on the air. I got to produce it in the truck, so the excitement, and I knew how to do that because I had observed, or I bought the time, so best I knew how to do it. That's where I learned on the job, and I had to sell the advertising or the sponsorship because it was our tournament. So again, it's something that I had to do to be able to do that. So if I have an idea today, it still is only as good as I can sell it, right? That really is the common denominator. But if you have a good team, which we do, and you develop a good reputation, you do get calls like that Jody Roth call years back, saying, "Hey, can you guys do this?" Then you don't have to sell it. You just have to do it. I like those.
You really like plunged yourself right into the pool. That's how you started off. You just jumped in and went. I thought I grew up in New York, and I thought you were going to say in the Los Angeles side you were Paige. I did that whole job. I thought you were Paige over at Television City or something like that. But no, no. I'm getting involved in the gig right away.
Well, it was just the tack that I took. It really just the tack that I took, because I have a lot of friends that went through the system in that in their, and it's, if it works going through the system,
Uh-huh.
it is better. I mean, it really is better, I have to say, because the system is devised for a certain, learning process that helps.
Uh-huh.
But if the system gets clogged at all and stops good people from advancing, then it's maybe not so good. So it's just what I did, and others do differently.
And one word on that, because today we're in a whole different world. We're in streaming. We're in. I don't know. I don't know what happens today. Just from your aerial view, somebody getting into the business, what do they have to look forward to today? Where would you advise students pointing themselves in this business?
You got to really be You got to really be observant. I you know, it's a great question, because I think a lot about that. I was talking to a friend who's involved with the Annenberg School at USC, and it just hit me because I toured the Annenberg School years ago and was blown away by the facilities, and it's amazing what they have there. But I live in the world of the workplace, and that, you know, that's a school that's kind of teaching you just one, it's a slice of, it's not everything, but it's
Right.
teaching um, a skill set to be able to, you know, make it in the real world. Only thing is the real world has changed from what the real world was until the real world is. And I said to the person, I'm a bit perplexed here. Shouldn't you have a course that's maybe called Plan B?
Oh, yes.
Because only the fairness that someone could have been a freshman 2 years ago, and our world is significantly different 2 years, 2 years later. But talented people that have great people skills, they're smart, that are good storytellers, that um, they're just good people, good people skills, good people, succeed. And what I tell people, and people, I heard this, and I then observed and saw it to be true, is that you don't want to work for good company, good place. I mean, that's great if it happens. You want to work with good people. You want to make your decisions off of who you're going to be working with for. Um, like who's the coach? Like who's the coach? And and that's whether you're in our business or literally coach. If you're going to play a sport at a college, maybe go to the place with the coach you really know you can want to play for.
I look at it this way, the distribution techniques continue to advance and change, but we're all still creating content, at least stuff we do.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the bottom line. Is how do you get the content? How do you get this to them?
Yes.
Via video, via audio, whichever. Um, Two things. One, I didn't realize Danny had been on the show so long.
Yes.
It goes back from NCIS Los Angeles when she was doing fun. And Nate from the CBS morning show. Um, they will be back. Uh,
Mhm.
you will produce next year. Well, this year's, we'll talk about that one more time, but next year's is going to be I would imagine, a blowout. Are you planning it already?
No, but since it's come up in the last week, you kind of start to think about it. It's also the 60th year of the Super Bowl. I mean, that's crazy because it just seems like we were year 50 in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. So
Uh-huh.
it's, that's where next year is. So, well, again, I meant what I said, which is we may reminisce amongst ourselves about what's happened for 25 years or, talk about it outside, but I don't think within the walls of the TV show, get caught up in our experience, because that's not what the viewers really care about.
That's that's the bottom line. It is the Super Bowl greatest commercials, funniest of all time. Wednesday, February 5th, 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific on CBS, and streams. There's another way of getting it out there. Streams on Paramount Plus. Bob Horowitz, thank you very, very much. Look forward to talking to you when the big anniversary shows up. Have fun on this one. We'll be voting.
All right.
Voting.
Well, you watch and vote for the vote, right? So you watch and vote for
I
the
love it.
vote, FOAT, right? So Ross, thank you. I enjoyed it, and some good questions. And it's like the show. You took me back to a time and place that got me to smile a little bit. So say some
Good.
good.
Good. Always a pleasure to do that, and always a pleasure to talk to you, Bob Horowitz. Thank you.